Honduran President Manuel Zelaya has made a dramatic return to his country nearly 3 months after the military coup that forced him into exile. On Monday, Zelaya reappeared in the Honduran capital Tegucigalpa, taking refuge in the Brazilian embassy. Speaking from the embassy's roof, Zelaya said he had arrived after a lengthy trip, traveling sometimes by foot to avoid detection.
Tuve que recorrer 15 horas, unas veces caminando.
I had to travel for 15 hours, sometimes walking, other times marching in different areas in the middle of the night, because I wanted to celebrate the country's Independence Day with the Honduran people. Those who believe that governing was something easy have made a mistake. To govern is something serious. Governing requires talent, dedication, and love for the people.
Zelaya wouldn't provide specifics, but it's unlikely he could have returned without help from elements of the Honduran military or intelligence services. That prospect could signify a further setback for the Honduran coup regime, which has relied on military support to defy internal unrest and global isolation. The head of the coup regime, Roberto Micheletti, initially dismissed reports of Zelaya's return as, quote, media terrorism. But as thousands of Zelaya supporters descended on the Brazilian embassy, Micheletti imposed a national curfew and took to the airwaves. Flanked by his cabinet and top military leaders, Micheletti called on Brazil to hand over Zelaya for arrest.
No queda claro por qué ha regresado ahora a Honduras el señor Zelaya. Solo él lo sabe.
It is not clear why Mr. Zelaya has returned to Honduras at this time. Only he knows this. But I cannot reach another conclusion other than he is here to continue hampering the celebrations of our elections next November 29th, as he has done so far, as well as his followers for a few weeks now.
Desde hace varias semanas. Hago un llamado al gobierno de Brasil a que respete la orden judicial.
I made a call to the government of Brazil so that they respect the judicial order against Mr. Zelaya and hand him over to the authorities of Honduras. The state of Honduras is committed to respecting the rights of Mr. Zelaya to the mentioned process.
Los ojos del mundo están puestos sobre
the eyes of the world are placed on Brazil and also on Honduras. Let's not allow passions of a few stain the reputation and image of our people.
Zelaya supporters are reportedly planning to march on the palace later today. Here in the U.S., Secretary of State Hillary Clinton urged both sides to engage in dialogue.
It's imperative that dialogue begin, that there be a channel of communication between President Zelaya and the de facto regime in Honduras. And it's also imperative that the return of President Zelaya does not lead to any conflict or violence, but instead that everyone act in a peaceful way to try to find some common ground. Once again, the Costa Ricans will be using their good offices to try to encourage that to occur.
Clinton was speaking on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, where she met with Costa Rican President Oscar Arias after the meeting. Arias said he'd be willing to travel to Honduras to resume his efforts at brokering a negotiated solution.
I think this is the best opportunity, the best time now that Zelaya is back in his country for the two parties to sign the San Jose Accord. It's all we have on the table. There is no B plan. When we wrote this San Jose Accord, it was after listening to everybody. We took suggestions from each of the parties. I would be willing to go, but if both sides, if both parties ask me to go to Tegucigalpa, I certainly would be more than pleased to go and see what I can do.
The Nobel Peace Laureate, Costa Rican President Oscar Arias. We now go directly to the Brazilian embassy inside in Tegucigalpa to Andres Contreras, who works with us at Democracy Now! And on the program on the Americas Director for Nonviolence International. We welcome you to Democracy Now! Andres, what's happening right now?
Amy, it's good to talk with you. About 40 minutes ago, there was a very violent removal by the military and police of over 500 protesters who were outside the embassy dancing and rejoicing and celebrating all night. I was able to see them in their incredible spirit of jubilation as they expressed that since the news arrived that President Zelaya was returning to the country. Then, about 40 minutes ago, there was a massive tear gas attack and a violent removal of all of the over 500 people in front of the embassy. I'm inside the embassy with about 150 people who are inside. There was no direct attack against the embassy itself, but the tear gas did enter, and it affected every single one of us inside the embassy. I'm now in the room where the president slept, and I'm with the First Lady nearby. Everyone was affected by this tear gas attack, but fortunately there are no permanent injuries. We're not aware of any injuries, but I'm sure there were many of those who were protesting and celebrating outside the embassy.
Andres, can you tell us, how did President Zelaya return to Honduras?
Reports are, Amy, and he was asked directly and he answered in a very general way, but the reports are that he flew from Nicaragua to El Salvador and then reached the border there at a place called El Amatillo. And there entered into the trunk of a car and crossed about 20 police barricades and was never detected. He drove straight to, his driver took him straight to the Brazilian embassy. Initial reports were that the president was in Honduras and that he was at the United Nations headquarters. So the initial rally of celebration went there to the United Nations. There were thousands and thousands of people there rejoicing. And then the word came that he was at the Brazilian embassy, and then we transferred that celebration here.
And Andres, why did the Brazilians take him in, have him have refuge in the Brazilian embassy in Tegucigalpa?
It's very clear that Brazil has been a very strong advocate of President Zelaya during this entire crisis, and because of the power and the symbolism of the strength of South America and Brazil being the strongest and largest of those countries, it's clear that it seems President Zelaya decided that this was the place that it was best to come to, and when he arrived, they, of course, opened the doors. The Brazilian authorities report that they did not know ahead of time that he was coming here, but he was welcomed when he came, and his family was reunited here in the embassy for the first time after 86 days of being separated.
And the president, the head of the coup regime, Roberto Micheletti, has continued his call for Zelaya's arrest. What does President Zelaya say right now about that?
President Zelaya speaks very positively in a very reconciling mode. He does not even take seriously what coup regime leader Micheletti is saying. Micheletti is saying that there's a jail space waiting for President Zelaya. However, President Zelaya is really focusing on the way to truly resolve this crisis by seeking mediation. Today, it's hopefully expected that Mr. Insulza, the head of the OAS, will arrive. However, they have closed the airports, and it's not certain if they will allow the plane to land with Mr. Insulza from the OAS.